Hello everyone, Super Tim 101 here, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today I want to go over the newest mech in the game, and that is the Hatchetman. Yes, that's right, the Hatchetman. I was super excited to see that they were adding the Hatchetman into the game. I have wanted the Hatchetman since I started playing Mechwarrior Online. I just really love the idea of the mech, I really love the look of the mech, I love the lore of the mech. It's one of my favorite mechs in um, all of BattleTech and all of Mechwarrior games. I think the only Mechwarrior game you can play this in is Mechwarrior 5. Otherwise, although I'm not entirely sure on that. Nevertheless, I have been really hoping they would add this mech, despite there being no melee in Mechwarrior Online, which I'll get to in a minute. So today I just want to go over some of the lore of this mech, as well as some of the builds that I've found effective. Later on, I will be adding some videos with some gameplay to show you how this works in combat. So the Hatchetman is one of the first mechs designed after the Succession Wars were raging. So most of during the Succession Wars, you had battle mechs that were just being used that were old, and old designs being produced, but no new designs being made until the Hatchetman here, which used some new technology. First one is this hatchet. It was designed to be a urban combat ambusher, which would hide behind a building or something, and then jump out. It has jump jets to jump out and hack up its enemies with this 5-ton hatchet. It's kind of like an urban mech. They were slow, but lots of jump jets to sort of jump in and out of buildings and ambush their opponents. Although that eventually spread to other and most combat regiments in the Lyran Alliance. The second thing is that it features a whole head ejection system, which of course isn't used here in Mechwarrior Online, but it's an important part of the lore because it allowed the Mechwarriors to eject their whole head so that they could survive on a environmentally hostile planet or in combat areas without atmosphere, like on moons or asteroids or things like that. So really effective in terms of ambushing the enemy, and also effective at keeping the Mechwarriors alive if they needed to eject. Now, the most famous Hatchetman story, and this is probably why I like the mech so much, is perhaps that of Kai Allard-Liao, who had to use a Hatchetman when his Yunlo Wang Centurion didn't make it to the front line in time for the Battle of Twycross, where the Inner Sphere was fighting against the Jade Falcons. Now, Kay was off seeing if the infantry was able to blow up a pass called the Great Gash, which was like a big mountain pass, so that it would cut off the reinforcements of the Jade Falcons. And it turns out they were routed by elementals. So what Kay did was challenge a batchall to all of the Falcon guards in his Hatchetman here, and lured them all into the pass, hacked at the commander with his hatchet, and then blew up his fusion reactor to trigger the explosives that were in the Great Gash and trigger an avalanche and destroyed the whole Falcon guards while using that full head ejection system to escape to safety, which is just so badass and so cool. And maybe that's, again, why I like the idea of the Hatchetman so much. Now, there's no melee in Mechwarrior Online, but that doesn't bother me. And the reason is because there's several mechs already in the game that would benefit also from having melee that don't have it. For instance, the Dragon, which has its autocannon specially reinforced for melee brawling, and it uses its speed to get in close in order to slug it out with its enemies even after it shoots its weapons. And you can see some of that already in the game where it has a top speed boost in its quirks. But another mech is like the Banshee, which uses a huge engine for an assault so that it's a little bit undergunned, and therefore was used to get into melee range and use its power fists to punch other mechs. But for the most part, in the lore, it's considered undergunned and mostly a punch bot. Also, the Charger, which Hex of the Black Pants Legion just did a great video on the Charger, but again, the Charger is considered laughably undergunned for an assault mech, and yet it still uses its speed to get up in close and basically use its assault mass to destroy smaller mechs with its melee capabilities and not necessarily its 5 small lasers. So all of those mechs are radically affected by not having melee in this game, and while those aren't designed specifically for their melee, like perhaps the Hatchetman is, it is factored into their role in the lore and in other parts of the BattleTech universe, like tabletop or other games. Even the Great Battlemaster is known for its amazing melee ability. No one cares that the Battlemaster can't rip off someone's arm and beat them to death with it in Mechwarrior Online. Therefore, I would suggest that the Hatchetman can still be a solid mech when adapted to Mechwarrior Online, if it's given the proper hardpoints and the proper quirks. So with that out of the way, I'd like to actually look at these Hatchetmen now in Mechwarrior Online and go over their quirks and check out a build that I have been most successful with. So we're going to start with this hero mech, the Tin Man. Now the Tin Man, as far as I can tell, is, and if anyone has different information on this, please feel free to tell me in the comments, but the Tin Man seems to be a throwback or a suggestion to some fan creations of the Urban Mech that added a hatchet to the Urban Mech and called it the Tin Man. And then eventually that became the Tin Man 2, which was sort of an upgraded Urban Mech that also had the hatchet. So this is, again, the Urban Mech being an urban combat, and then you add a melee weapon to it with this hatchet. And so here you have the Tin Man, the TM. So I think that's where it comes from, but I'm not entirely sure. So if you have, like I said, if you have any updates to that, please let me know in the comments. But let's go into the Mech Lab and check out the Tin Man. So the Tin Man runs stock with an LB10 and a bunch of SRM2s. And I basically kept it like that. But I dropped the right arm SRM2 and the armor in both the arms to drop down to a light engine, but still keep some good speed. After watching a lot of videos and a lot of streams with other people piloting with the XL engine, I know a lot of people can do that, but I'm not as confident in my ability to twist and save damage. So I wanted to run a light engine so that I can be a little bit tankier, as well as continue with some speed. So I dropped that one SRM in the right arm and still run the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SRM2s and 2 jump jets. So that's with the light engine 205. With that, let's look at the quirks. See what we're running here. The ballistic cooldown minus 10%, ballistic velocity plus 20%, missile spread minus 10%, and heat minus 10%. So I had tried a couple things in the ballistic slot, but I think the LB10 works just the best here, as well as to just keep the arms shaved down and use them as shield arms and twist the damage like that. So that is the Tin Man. Let's look at another mech. Start from the 3F. The 3F is a little weird. It's probably the weakest out of all of the Hatchetmen that came out. Let's look at the quirks and why maybe that's the case. It has a UAC jam duration of minus 30%, ballistic cooldown of minus 10%, and a heat of minus 10%. It has 3 ballistic hardpoints though, and the ballistic hardpoints are all high, which is really good, so it makes me want to use them. But ballistics are heavy, and this is a 45-ton mech, so it's tricky to figure out what to run on it. I had tried running a UAC 10 and 4 medium lasers, or a UAC 5 and 4 medium lasers with some more speed, and I ended up going with 3 UAC 2s and an XL 225 and and 1 jump jet. That's important. I've seen some people run this without jump jets. I took out a half ton of ammo and added 1 jump jet. And this is basically a long-range poker. And that's the most effective I could figure out how to do it. I had some success with the UAC 10 and the 4 medium lasers as well, but I just felt that it wasn't using all of the ballistic hardpoints very well. And, you know, someone said some quirks are meant to be ignored, and that might be the case with the 3F. Nevertheless, this is possibly the most difficult one to build for, and not my favorite of the Hatchetmen. So let's move in to the next one, which is going to be the 5K. Has an energy cooldown of minus 10%, a missile spread of minus 10%, a heat of minus 10%, and a range of plus 10%. Now that range is really helpful. I ran it with 3 MRM 10s and 3 medium lasers, which seems a little bit undergunned, but the spread of the MRM-10s plus the quirk make it really effective at doing some pinpoint damage. And then the range gives you better range on your medium lasers as well as your MRMs. And so the cooldown is really good. Heat is pretty decent. It can run 2 jump jets. It can run a light engine 235, still go 84.6, which is speedy enough. I felt like this was one of the most effective mechs, even if it seems a little undergunned. It can fire quickly, it can get in and out of cover, and it can do its job pretty well. So one of the better. Moving on to the next one is the Hatchetman 5S. Now this is absolutely my favorite Hatchetman. Let's look at the quirks real quick. Got an LBX spread of -20%, a ballistic cooldown of -15%, ballistic velocity of +30%, and a range of +10%. My gosh, it's quirked. Awesome. And it has this really high ballistic mount, which I put an LB10 on, and then I put 7 small lasers, 5 in the arms and 2 more in the left torso here, with 2 jump jets, 3 tons of ammo, and a light engine 225, again going 87 kph. It's fast, it's tanky, it fires so fast. It really dishes out the damage. I really enjoyed playing this particular Hatchetman. I think this is probably the best one out of all of them. All right, let's jump into the next one, which is the Hatchetman 6D. The 6D has ballistic range of +10% and velocity of +20%. It also is the only Hatchetman that can run the Guardian ECM. And so when I saw the quirks and I saw the ECM, I said, this looks like a slightly smaller version of the Enforcer Ghillie, but with a better mount. So again, the mount is really high. If you can shoot it, you can see it. The Ghillie's mount is in the arm, so which means if you go back and watch my Ghillie video, I kept shooting terrain because the mount was lower. But because of the quirk, which gives you that range and velocity of 20%, if you shoot it, if you shoot at it, you're probably gonna hit it, which is really great. So I really like this build. The ECM, the jump jets get to where you need to be, and the high mount of the Gauss rifle lets you shoot at whatever you want to shoot at. Shoot it like a Ghillie, though, basically. It does run an XL 200 to fit everything. I need an XL, but it's not super fast. But you're not supposed to be in the front line. You're supposed to be sort of in the back. So an XL works with that. All right, let's head to the next mech, which is the Hatchetman 7R. This is the last Hatchetman we're going to be talking about. This one's a little tricky as well because of the hard points, but let's check out what the quirks are. Inner sphere medium laser duration -10%, inner sphere medium laser heat scale limit +1, and an inner sphere medium pulse laser heat scale limit +1 as well. Which means it's really, the quirks are really trying to get you to run those medium lasers or the medium pulse lasers, because there's 7 energy hardpoints in your right arm. You also have a missile hardpoint in your left torso. I just don't see how that's a good idea. So I ended up putting a large missile launcher in my left torso and 7 small lasers in the right arm to make the mech a little bit more balanced. I had been running a MRM-40, but it was just so hot that I couldn't really sustain a DPS with it. The small lasers still do quite a bit of damage, and the mech has mask, which means that even though I'm running a light engine 230, which is only 82.8 kph, I can kind of sprint with the mask, get to where I need to be. I use the jump jets to do some pop tarting with the MRM-30, and the burn time of the small lasers is such that you can kind of pop tart with them as well. I think this mech can be really effective. It has good pinpoint damage with the small lasers, and the MRM-30 can sandblast and still do like a pop of damage. And then with that sort of balance, if you lose your left torso, you still got your small lasers. If you lose your right arm, you still have your MRM-30. It's a tricky one to play, nevertheless, I felt like, because all of the lasers, people know to shoot your arm. So there's that. But I thought it was a lot of fun, even if I didn't use the medium laser quirks. I tried it a little bit. It just seemed really too hot, and you didn't have the right tonnage to do anything else. But so that is the Hatchetman. I wanted to note that my son did all of the designing of the Hatchetmen, camo specs, and so this one looks like a snake, which is really cool. So just a couple notes here at the end. A reminder that in the near future, I will have some more in-depth review of each build with some gameplay involved. In general, I think the mech is really solid. It's got good hitboxes. It's got some pretty good geometry on it, so you can twist. People will miss shots because you're kind of skinny. It has some of them have really good hard points. They're really high. Even the arm mount isn't incredibly low. It's not so bad. So I think it is a really quite solid mech. Ironically, I would stay away from actually equipping too many of the hatchets or axes onto the mech, and the reason for that is it actually obstructs your view. When you're looking at your cockpit, whatever side you have your hatchet on will actually obstruct that window. So I have this sort of thin one here because it's a little bit better, but I typically stay away from actually using the hatchets. My son actually had put in on one of them 2 of the hatchets, and it's like having horse blinders on. You can't see anything. So don't even bother equipping the hatchets if you don't want to. Otherwise, the mech performs really well, and I would absolutely recommend picking this mech pack up. It's a little pricey. It's $40, but you get quite a few of them, and you get that one hero mech as well, which is effective. So I really enjoyed playing the Hatchetman. I need to get better at it. I've gotten so used to playing heavy mechs and assault mechs that I treat the Hatchetman like it's a heavy, and it's not. It is still a 45-ton medium, which means it has some armor issues, even with the survivability quirks. But if you practice with it, learn your positioning, learn what the mech is good at, I absolutely think it is a solid mech, and I will be playing it a lot in the future. Well, that is my review of the Hatchetman mech pack, and I, again, would recommend you picking it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, and if you like this content and want more, please consider subscribing. Thanks. Have a great day.